When ships can't stop in a port but need to stop somewhere, or if they need to stay in one place, they use an anchor chain. But wait a second, ships use anchors themselves to stop, right? Anchor chains are just the things that connect them. Well, this well known symbol of the sea may not be as well known as you would think. Anchors have become the main symbol to hang on your beachside house that says, "I eat only fish and lost my eye to a megalodon." Today, we will dive into the history of these essential pieces of gear that are very misunderstood and how they work. Let's explore the rules of navigation. The history of anchors goes back a long time, but not as long as you would think. The first anchor was introduced that was a Greek mushroom anchor, a type still used today, but which we will discuss a bit later. Fashioned from a flattened stone with a hole drilled through the center and a triangular eyebolt at the crown for tripping. During the Roman Republic era, anchors took on the familiar T-shape, with a removable stock at the top. The design of the arms at the bottom changed a lot over the years to better increase the ease of bringing up the anchor. Eventually, stocks became fixed to the anchor itself. By the 1st century, Romans were using anchors similar to what we might be considered the traditional design, with a wooden stem or shank to which the mooring line was attached at the opposite end to the crown where pointed flukes or arms were attached. A perpendicular stock of anatomy or hard lead alloy, intended to lie flat along the seafloor properly to align the arm to dig into the seafloor. Anchors remained imperfect and unstandardized for most of their history. Jumping way forward to 1813, the first anchor to use curved arms was introduced. In 1852, the Admiralty anchor was standardized on all Royal Navy ships. The Rogers anchor shortly after contained rotating flukes able to dig in on either side, gaining an excellent reputation among captains. In 1921, Richard Francis Hawkins invented the first stockless anchor. This is one without the metal bar on top. His anchor was used by the Dutch Navy, who said it did not hold well in the mud. History would prove it more effective. In 1864 came the first self-canting and closed-storing anchor designed by Francois Martin, which, passing through successive improvements, became the improved Martin anchor. An important advantage it had was that it didn't require any welds and was being made from forged iron, leading to lower prices. In 1890, with the invention of cast steel, an anchor became more effective. In 1903, stockless anchors became standard in the Royal Navy, and people adopted them. Development of anchors remained mostly static throughout the 20th century, and eventually, the Hull's stockless anchor became the most popular model, with stocks gradually being phased out on larger ships. Stockless anchors work by plowing into the sand and stopping the ship that way, using basically friction. Though other development ended up changing the way people used anchors forever. Development continues in smaller anchors, with the Bruce anchor being popular among small pleasure boats, with some larger ones using improved variants. Let's get into how anchors keep the ship steady, though. The anchor chain. I know that it sounds kinda strange, but of course, anchors keep a ship to the ground, but the end of an anchor is basically used to set a vessel. It may also keep it in place, however, without an anchor chain, the anchor would drag, so the chain creates drag on the sea floor to prevent that. The anchor chain comes in 15-fathom lengths called shots. Individual shots are connected to one another by detachable links, and a special color coding system allows one to tell, just by looking at the visual chains on deck, how much fathoms have been put out. Anchor chains basically grip the sea floor and increase the weight on the bottom of the ocean, so when you pull them up, it decreases the weight and therefore makes it much easier for the anchor to actually be pulled up. Let's go over the ground tackle equipment. Ground tackle referring to the equipment used on deck. This includes such things as the hose pipe, which is what this anchor is stored in, and how the ship guides the anchor chain. This also includes room for hoses, as it's recommended to wash an anchor to prevent corrosion. Next is the anchor lashing. This is locked in place during sailing and is used to prevent the anchor falling out, causing damage. The second line of defense against that is the chain stopper, but this is more used to control the rate at which the anchor is being let out. After that is the windlass. This is a large winch on a ship that's used for more than just an anchor. For anchors, this is the main way they're let out and, more importantly, let in. This is how you weigh anchor, but also used for other heavy equipment. This, along with the rest of the equipment, are usually contained in the windlass room, used to cover anchor equipment from the elements. The windlass room can also be used to house tools and equipment storage. You see this a lot on modern cruise ships to save room on deck for other things. But it's also important to note that any big winch on a ship can be a windlass. Going down, the sprawling pipe used for the anchor is the chain locker, where all the chain that is not being used is stored. This reaches the end, also known as the bitter end. This is where the chain is actually connected to the ship and the max length that can go down. This is also where the anchor can be let go in emergencies. But what actually goes on the end of an anchor? First, let's go through the types of anchors. This is a grapple anchor. A grappling hook with more hooks, basically. That's it. The upside, no matter which orientation it lands in, it will catch something. The downside, hooks get caught frequently, making it hard to retrieve. These are also used to retrieve things that have fallen overboard, like a grappling hook. Plow anchors are shaped like plows. They are usually used on small ships and are good for getting a good grip in mud. They are good for all types of seafloor, but not especially good in any. However, they also tend to skip across the seafloor when going fast and have trouble being raised out of the seafloor. The Danforth anchor is a common design, using the stalk at the end followed by two positionable triangle shapes. Its compact and lightweight design makes it easy to retrieve and service. It can't hold well in weeds or rocks, but is good in mud and sand. Claw anchors are used for things that usually stay in place for a long time. They're used on small boats in place of bow anchors and are easier to store on a roller. They are popular on charter boats as they have a high chance of catching on the first try. However, they have to be scaled up significantly to achieve acceptable holding power to weight ratio and have issues on grassy sea floors. Permanent anchors are used for things that are planned to never move. For example, mooring buoys. These are buoys which are attached to a permanent anchor and have a floating buoy on the top with a rope that you can tie a boat to. If you swim down on a buoy, including marking buoys and barges, you can probably see it. Mostly concrete blocks are the most popular type of permanent anchor. There is a type of permanent anchor that can be lifted, mostly for light ships, but we'll get to that next. Concrete blocks are used for buoys and are the most common form of permanent anchor. One other way is to use 3 conventional anchors and put them in a circle pattern. No matter which way the object moves, it stays in place. Mushroom anchors are used by ships to stay in place for a long time. Used since ancient times, their design was never finalized until 1807 by the lightship Peros, a converted fishing boat. It's shaped like an inverted mushroom, the head becoming buried in the silt. A counterweight is often provided at the other end, as it requires to lay still on its side in order to become buried. A mushroom anchor normally sinks in the silt to the point where it has displaced its own weight in bottom material, thus greatly increasing its holding power. These anchors are suitable only for silt or mud bottom, since they rely upon suction and cohesion of bottom material with rocky or coarse sand bottoms. Lightships often used these, as they were easy to reel up if you needed to go to shore, but also were able to hold great amounts of weight and stay in one place for a long time. There are other types of anchors, more than this video could cover, so I recommend visiting Marine Insight or the link in the description to find out more about anchors and which one is best for you. Marine Insight in general is just a really good website and super helpful for this video, so if you really want to get into the marine industry, check out that website. It's really good. And if you do have a boat, I would imagine it would be a small one if you're watching this video, I would recommend a plow or claw anchor, as they perform well for small ships. But big ships, it's best to stay away from them. Anchors are fascinating, though, as most people don't know much about them, despite being so important in marine life. Anchors are fascinating and more than just a symbol, and I hope you enjoyed learning about them. Fair winds and following seas.